Torah portion for 16 November 2024 is Vayera, and he appeared. Covered in Torah is Genesis 18:1 through 22:24. The Haftarah is 2 Kings 4:1 through 37. And the apostolic portion is Luke 17:28 through 37. Genesis 18. And Yahovah appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, while he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw 3 men standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, Yahovah, if I have now found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread and refresh your hearts, and then go on, for this is why you have come to your servant. And they said, do as you have said. So Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, make ready 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. And they said to him, where is Sarah your wife? And he said, see, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life. And see, Sarah your wife is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being too old? And Yahovah said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child, since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahovah? At the appointed time I am going to return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, but you did laugh. And the men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them away. And Yahovah said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him, so that he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahovah, to do righteousness and right ruling, so that Yahovah brings to Abraham what he has spoken to him. And Yahovah said, because the outcry against Sodom and Amorrah is great, and because their sin is very heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I know. So the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Yahovah still stood before Abraham. And Abraham drew near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wrong? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wrong, so that the righteous should be as the wrong. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth not do right? And Yahovah said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, Look, please, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Jehovah. Suppose there are 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there are 45, I do not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again, and said, Suppose there are found 40. And he said, I would not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, Let not Jehovah be displeased, and let me speak. Suppose there are found 30. And he said, I would not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Look, please, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Jehovah. Suppose there are found 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, Let not Jehovah be displeased, and let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 10. Then Jehovah went away as soon as he had ended speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Genesis 19. And the 2 messengers came up to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Look, please, my masters, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, and rise early and go your way. And they said, No, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned into him and came into his house. And he made them a feast, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and let us know them. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, and shut the door behind him, and said, Please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you wish. Only do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, Stand back. And they said, This one came in to sojourn, and should he always judge? Now we are going to treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, and they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else, a son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Jehovah, and Jehovah has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for Jehovah is going to destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be as one joking. And when morning dawned, the messengers urged Lot to hurry, saying, Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he loitered, the men took hold of his hand, and his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, Jehovah having compassion on him, and they brought him out, and set him outside the city. And it came to be, when they had brought him outside, that he said, Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, Oh no, Jehovah, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. Is it not a small matter, and let my life be saved? And he said to him, Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there. So the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar, and Jehovah rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Jehovah out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and went to the place where he had stood before Jehovah. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked, and saw the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be, when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come into us, as is the way of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we preserve the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, See, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lie with him, so that we keep the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night as well, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. Genesis 20. And Abraham set out from there to the land of the south, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. And Abraham said concerning Sarah his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech, sovereign of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But Elohim came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, See, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. However, Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Jehovah, would you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, She is my sister? And she, even she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart, and in the innocence of my hands, I have done this. And Elohim said to him in a dream, Yea, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, and so I kept you from sinning against me. For this reason I did not let you touch her. And now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and let him pray for you, and you live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall certainly die, you and all that are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and spoke all these words in their hearing. And the men were greatly frightened. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And what have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and on my reign a great sin? You have done matters to me that should not be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you have in view, that you have done this matter? And Abraham said, Only because I said to myself, The fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they shall kill me for the sake of my wife. And yet she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when it came to be, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness that you should do for me in every place. Wherever we go, say of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and cattle and male and female servants, and gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, See, my land is before you. Dwell wherever it is good in your eyes. And to Sarah he said, See, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. See, it is to you a covering of eyes before all who are with you, and before all others, and you are cleared before everyone. And Abraham prayed to Elohim, and Elohim healed Abimelech and his wife and his female servants, so they bore children. For Yahovah had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Genesis 21. And Yahovah visited Sarah as he had said, and Yahovah did for Sarah as he had spoken. So Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the appointed time of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Yitzhak. And Abraham circumcised his son Yitzhak when he was 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Yitzhak was born to him. And Sarah said, Elohim has made me laugh, and every one who hears of it laughs with me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Yitzhak was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Mitzrite, whom she had borne Abraham, mocking. So she said to Abraham, Drive out this female servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit with my son, with Yitzhak. And the matter was very evil in the eyes of Abraham because of his son. But Elohim said to Abraham, Let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Yitzhak your seed is called. And the son of the female servant I also make a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham rose early in the morning, and took bread and a skin of water, which he gave to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, also the boy, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. and the water in the skin was used up. And she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. And she went down and sat down about a bow shot away, for she said, Let me not see the death of the boy. And she sat opposite him, and lifted her voice, and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens, and said, What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not fear, for Elohim has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Arise, lift up the boy, and hold him with your hand, for I make a great nation of him. And Elohim opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. And Elohim was with the boy, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to be at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, Elohim is with you in all that you do. And now swear to me by Elohim not to be untrue to me, to my offspring, or to my descendants. Do to me according to the kindness that I have done to you, and the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this deed, neither did you inform me, nor did I hear until today. So Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech asked Abraham, What are these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves? And he said, Take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, to be my witness that I have dug this well. So he called that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. And Abimelech rose with Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of Jehovah, the everlasting El. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days. Genesis 22. And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Abraham, and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Take your son, now your only son Yitzhak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I command you. And Abraham rose early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Yitzhak his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose, and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes, and saw the place from a distance. So Abraham said to his young man, Stay here with the donkey, while the boy and I go over there and worship, and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it on Yitzhak his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. And Yitzhak spoke to Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, See the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. And the 2 of them went together. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham built an altar there, and placed the wood in order. And he bound Yitzhak his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Jehovah called to him from the heavens and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or touch him. For now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and saw behind him a ram caught in a bush by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the place by its name Vayera, as it is said to this day, On the mountain Yehovah provides. And the messenger of Yehovah called to Abraham a second time from the heavens, and said, By myself I have sworn, declares Yehovah, because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore, and let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Then Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to be after these events that it was reported to Abraham, saying, See, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor, Utz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Yidlaf, and Bethuel. And Bethuel brought forth Ribkah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Rumah, also bore Tebah, and Kaham, and Tahash, and Makkah. 2 Kings 4. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yehovah. And the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels, do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all those vessels, and set aside the filled ones. So she went from him, and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she urged him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a set-apart man of Elohim, who passes by us continually. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned in to the upper room, and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite woman. And he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the sovereign or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Elohim, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived, and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew. And it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to a servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him, and brought him to his mother. And he sat on her knees till noon, and died. And she went up, and laid him on the bed of the man of Elohim, and shut the door on him, and went out. And she called to her husband, and said, Please send one of the young men, and one of the donkeys, so that I hurry to the man of Elohim, and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon, nor the Sabbath. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey, and said to her servant, Drive and go. Do not slow down, except I speak to you. And she went, and came to the man of Elohim at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of Elohim saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, See the Shunammite woman. Please now run to meet her, and say to her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And she came to the man of Elohim at the hill, and she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of Elohim said, Leave her alone, for her being is bitter with her, and Yahovah has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me. And she said, Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? And he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins, take my staff in your hand, and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As Yahovah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you. And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them, and laid the staff on the face of the child. But there was no voice, and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him, and reported to him, saying, The child has not awakened. And Elisha came into the house, and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in, and shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to Yahovah. And he went up, and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned, and walked back and forth in the house, then went up, and stretched himself out on him. And the child ceased 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi, and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her, and she came in to him, and he said, Pick up your son. Then she went in, and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and picked up her son, and went out. Luke 17:28 through 37. And likewise, as it came to be in the days of Lot, they were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building. But on the day Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and sulfur from heaven, and destroyed all. It shall be the same in the day the Son of Adam is revealed. In that day he who shall be on the housetop, and his goods in the house, let him not come down to take them away. and likewise the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember the wife of Lot. Whoever seeks to save his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life shall preserve it. I say to you, in that night there shall be two in one bed. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Two shall be grinding together. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Two shall be in the field. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. And they answered, saying to him, Where, Master? And he said to them, Where the body is, there also the eagles shall be gathered together.